Hi, I'm Suzanne Roynan, and over the past 30 plus, oh my God, years, I have been working in Feng Shui and interiors therapy. And what I've realized in the last couple of years is that the internet is full of misinformation. And this means that people are making some really silly and unfortunate mistakes when they're trying to use their Feng Shui, and it's working against them. So I thought it'd be a really great idea to just put together a really short 6-part mini series just to show you how to get the basics right for your Feng Shui and start using this magic energy in your home. Let's work it out, shall we? So here we are with session 1, and we're talking about the 4 essential steps you need to take to get your Feng Shui right. And I'm going to add in something that you might not know quite yet. But first of all, who am I? I'm Suzanne Roynan. I work with interiorsTherapy.com, and I'm the best-selling author of Welcome Home, How Stuff Makes or Breaks Your Relationship. You might have seen articles I've written for Homes and Gardens, the Sunday Times. You'll find me all over the place. And I've been working in Feng Shui and interiors therapy for over 30 years. And even the thought of that scares me. So without further ado, let's move on. So what we're going to talk about in this little session is the Feng Shui Bagua, floor plans, your facing direction, your compass direction, the Bagua to the floor plan, and I'm going to do a bonus on house types. And there's also some information for you to download. So the Feng Shui Bagua, what's it all about? Well, you've probably heard of Feng Shui. You maybe have heard the word Bagua. And the Bagua is essentially this grid of 9 squares. So this here is the Bagua. And these individual squares are known as guas. And each of those guas relates to a different part of your life. You can see it written down here. Let's start with the center. So the center of your home is all about your health and well-being. If you have got long-term chronic illness or you're particularly prone to accidents and injuries, have a really close look at what's going on in the center of your home. Up here in the north, this is about your career. It's about the way you make your money, but it's also the life path that you choose for yourself. The northeast is about knowledge. It's about spirituality, wisdom, and learning. So this is a great place for meditation, but it's also a really good place to get the kids to do their homework. You get that extra energetic boost. In the east, this is about family and community. This is your brothers, your sisters, parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, but it's also about the past. So this is where you might put archived information, old tax details. It could even be where you keep your family tree. The southeast is one of the favorite places for people to work on. It's about wealth and money and abundance. But remember, abundance can be an abundance of apples on a tree or an abundance of flowers in the garden. It doesn't have to be about wealth. So you need to be really clear about what you're asking for. The south is about your fame and reputation. And this isn't about appearing at Madison Square Garden. This is how you are seen by others, how you are respected or how you are noticed. And if you're not getting the recognition that you feel you deserve at work, it's a good place to have a look and see what's going on. Now, the Southwest is about love and relationships, not just with a significant other, but as much as anything with yourself. It's another really important place to get right and balanced. The West is about new beginnings and opportunities. It's also where we put pictures of much younger children. And, this is a place where if you want a fresh start, it's a really good place to get going with that. The Northwest, I think, is my favorite area because it's about travel and it's about helpful friends. Now, travel isn't just about heading to the airport and flying off to the Caribbean. It is as much about your commute going well or your journey to the shops being and with no delays. The helpful friends are not the people that you regard as your regular friends. These are the people who turn up when you most need them. It might be a mechanic who stops if you've broken down in a lay-by, or it could be somebody that picks up your shopping if you've dropped it, or notices that you've dropped your wallet and comes running after you with it. These are your helpful friends. It might even be somebody who walks you home on a dark night when you're feeling a little bit vulnerable. So that's the Feng Shui Bagua. what do we do next? The next thing we need is a floor plan, because, we need to know exactly where that Feng Shui Bagua fits over your home. So in order to understand your life areas, your guas, we need to know where the Feng Shui puts them. And that begins with these two things, an accurate floor plan and a precise compass direction. So a floor plan of your home. If you don't have one, check out the real estate details or your realtor information, your architect's plans if you've had an extension done or some remodeling. Even if it was done before you moved in, you can find these in local authority information. Maybe there are sale details of places nearby with exactly the same layout as yours. A free app like Magic Plan will draw it online for you, or you can draw your own. And it's easiest with graph or squared paper. Measure each room and make the floor plan as accurate as you can. And I've actually added a sheet of squared paper to the homework download if you don't happen to have one at home. So the next thing to do once you have your floor plan is to overlay this 3x3 grid. Now it can be a square, it can be an oblong, but all of these boxes will be the same size. It's easy if you've got a regularly shaped home. We'll come to it if you don't in just a moment. So the next thing we need to know is where the facing of your home is. And unless you've really started to understand Feng Shui, you might not ever have heard of the facing. But the facing is essentially the side of your home that faces out to the world. This is the one that people see, perhaps when they're coming along the street. It's the elevation that your real estate agent would put on property details. It's the one you would like to show off if you were wanting to make an example of your home and how beautiful it was. So this house here has a very obvious facing. The front door is facing out onto the road. We've got these big windows. It's very obvious that this is the way the house is meant to be seen. But with these little bungalows here, do you notice that the main entrance is right down here? It's on the side of the property. And in fact, they are meant to be seen on this elevation here with these two big front windows. So in this situation, we would use this wall as the facing. Now take a look at this house here. This is what you see from the road. It doesn't look very lovely, does it? But at the back of the property, we have these huge windows and this very, very grand elevation. So in this situation, we would use the back of the property as the facing for the Feng Shui. Now, what about if you live in an apartment? Well, quite often, for example, with this apartment block here, the main entrance is actually down here. Now, that's going to bear no relation whatsoever to each of these individual apartments on all four sides of the building. So instead, with an apartment, we would use the balcony side, or if you don't have a balcony, the really biggest window, which is often on the main living area. So whichever direction that is facing out in is the one we would use for your facing. So for example, on this block here, if you live on this side of the building, this will be your facing. If your apartment is on the end of the building, then this will be your facing. On this apartment, these are the facings. And here we've got a facing here, we've got a facing here. But you see, we've also got some apartments on this side with their balconies. So those would be the facings. If you've got balconies in two different directions, you choose the one with the best view. So let's just go through that again so we're lovely and clear. So the facing is likely to be the front door side unless the main door is hidden or it's on the side of the house and there's another obvious front elevation to show off the building. Perhaps the rear or side elevations are grander, maybe they've got more glass or they're showier than the front. If it's an apartment where the main access door is on a different side of the building, and in most apartments, the facing has the biggest balcony or the largest window. If you aren't sure, ask me for help in the Facebook group. Okay, step 4 is all about compass directions. because once we've identified the correct compass direction for a home, everything is going to just fall into place. And it's now a whole lot easier if we have a smartphone. So how to take your readings? Stand with your back to the facing side of the building. So you're looking right out to the world rather than back towards the property. And just for accuracy, aim to take 3 readings facing outwards. One from the left of the front of the building or the facing of the building, one in the center and one in the right. So you're facing in the same direction for each of these readings, but they're all going to be slightly different. And we're going to take the average of those 3 readings to tell us precisely which direction your property is facing in. So here we are. This little lady is going to stand here. She's going to stand in the center and she's going to stand here, and she'll get each of her compass readings and write them down. And here on this balcony, again, 1, 2, 3, always with their back to the facing of the building. Now, what about if you can't get outside? So say your apartment is on one side of the building, the main entrance is on another, and there's all sorts of things in the way. Take a compass reading from the center of your home. And that's what this client had to do here. Let me show you why. So he was living in this apartment up here, and all of the windows were made of metal. Now, if you have a compass, he was using an old school compass, the metal will interfere with the compass. So instead of standing by the window, he went and stood in the center of his home. He stood around about here. And he was able to see that when he was looking towards his big windows, which were this way, that he was actually facing due north, which was very useful to know. Because then he was able to say, okay, well, this is my north in the middle on the top row. And then he knew where his center was and his south. Now, he was having problems with he wasn't getting recognized at work, basically. He was a bit fed up with it. He realized he had a lot of clutter in the south. And so he cleared that up, dealt with the mess, gave it a bit of a wash and brush up, and found that he was recognized that very next week at work for something he'd done quite some while before. So, you know, this thing, it does work, and it can work very, very quickly once you get going with it. So once you've got all of the areas of your home identified, you're on your way. You can start working out what's happening in your home and why. Now, if you happen to have a bit of a missing area on your home, what I need you to do is just still draw those 9 grids and the 9 space grid onto your floor plan. Yes, you're going to have a missing area. Hopefully you won't be missing the whole area, but if we have that, then there are solutions for it. Just need to ask me. You can also have an addition. So say something was built on here, we would probably just use the Bagua as it's drawn on there. Okay, so you've drawn your Bagua over your floor plan. You've got everything in place. You know where you're going with this, but somehow you're still not quite sure what's going on. We need to know your house type. Now, house types aren't generally talked about in Feng Shui because it takes a little bit of research and probably a professional to find out for definite what your house type is and what to do about it. However, you can hazard a really, really good guess. We've got 4 house types. The first one is good for people and it's good for money. And this is a place where people are generally fit and healthy. The money flows in, and it's kind of probably feels like a really lucky place to live. It's a happy family home. House type 2 is good for money. So we've got all of those positive vibes for the family or for whatever you want to do with your life, but there's never going to be enough money to do it. And it doesn't matter if you get a huge bonus at the end of the year, something will come along and suck away that bonus before you even have a chance to enjoy it. That's a bad for money home. Now, house type 3 is bad for people, but it's good for money. So when we've got a bad for people environment, we're going to have illness, silly injuries, potentially divorce or relationship problems. You know, if you've got a house that's turning over relationships over and over again, it's definitely a bad for people house. but it's going to be good for money, and there will always be enough money to throw at the health problem or at another divorce or whatever that situation is. Now, the fourth house type is one that I know from personal experience, and it is really difficult to live in until it's remedied, but it's bad for people and it's bad for money. And so you kind of get the worst of anything. It's like walking through quicksand, really stressful, really hard going, and it can cause immense stress on everybody who lives in it. So if you've got a bad for people and bad for money house, you probably know about it, and that might be why you're watching this mini series. If that's the case, you really do need to talk to me. So if it feels that your luck has changed while you've been living in your home, this can happen if you've built an extension or you've done some remodeling. But it can also happen for energetic reasons, when your house goes into a lock for a year or maybe for 20 years. So if you think that your bad luck has been going on for a long, long while, then that could be about a lock or it could be about the house type. But whatever it is, bespoke Feng Shui can balance out that negativity. So your homework for this session: download the information sheet, find or draw a floor plan of your home, identify the facing side. Is it your front door, the balcony, the side, or the rear? Take compass readings either from the center of your home or stand with your back to the wall of the facing side, so you're looking out into the big wide world, and take those compass readings. Write them down or screenshot them, because that's going to help you identify the direction that your home faces in. Draw a 3x3 grid over the floor plan of your home. It will either be square or rectangular, but each of the 9 areas of the grid should be equal. And then add the facing compass direction to your Bagua and label each of your guas in accordance with the direction, so that you know what you're working with. So that is your start. Next time, we're going to be talking about the center, about the health and well-being area of your home. And over the next 6 weeks, we will work through each of the areas. I'll teach you how to activate them, what not to have in them, and how to really get your basic Feng Shui going. I look forward to seeing you then. Bye now.